All right, so we've got our classes set up. We've got our database set up. We'll run into some small issues. Notice on my public one, if I go back to it, it's throwing an error because it has this unknown class on the index page. Okay, so let's go back to the code and we'll look in our index page. We scroll down. Notice it's referencing the tax class, which we don't have anymore. Okay, and it also references the tax class here, and it keeps going down, and we'll just keep throwing errors. Well, let's create this and make this more object oriented. Now we've got we're going to have more things to insert, update, create, and delete. So what we want to do, let's just create a table for users. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it user. And in that folder, I'm going to copy. So I just copied those 3 files. I'm going to paste it into user. So now I have my 3 files here. I'm going to duplicate my index because that is the closest one to create. Actually, update might be, but that's okay. We'll find the code. So now if I want to create a user, delete a user, look at all my users, and update a user. Okay. At this point, I can remove the delete, and I can also remove the update. Okay. And on my index file, I can actually go in, and on the index file, we don't really need a whole lot of this stuff yet. So I'm going to just delete a lot of the tax stuff out of here. Let's just remove all of this stuff. Don't need these. I'm going to leave this stuff on because it's not really doing anything. Definitely going to leave all this stuff up here. Okay. And then this is just a table, and it's not calling anything. This is not a table. This is just a form, which is perfectly fine. And in the table, it is calling some stuff. So I'm just going to comment that out so it doesn't do anything, but I might want to use some of that code later. So I'm just going to comment that out, and I will uncomment it here, and that should be great. So we'll start from there, and now if I run my app, I shouldn't get that error anymore. Now I have an error on line 79 that I've got an unexpected one of those, and this is on my index file. So let's look at line 79. I am missing. I need to make sure I close this because it's open here. Got to close it there. So let's go back and look and make sure that fixed it. Good. And I'm not throwing any more errors here, and you'll notice I have my my bottom footers now showing up. Okay, because it's not trying to do any queries at all. It's just throwing this out here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our users, and that will be something good that we can get started right now. So in our users, on our index page, we want to view all the users. Okay, so now we'll want on our page title, instead of home page, we'll call it the user page. Okay, and we'll call this user. Okay, because this is the user. Okay. And let's just close this one. Okay. Now here, instead of calling the tax, we can call user. However, we can just get rid of that because we don't need that. That was just a function call. This is saying if we post this back again, which we're not going to do. So we're not going to have a form on here. So we can actually just get rid of all of that on our table. All we're going to do on this table is view what's going on. So we don't need this form either. So let's get rid of the form. And we get rid of a lot of this code. Kind of clean it up a little bit. That's nice. And we can just say users, username, password. Which you technically probably don't want to do, but that's, in this app for right now. We'll just see if it works. Okay, and we'll say, you know what, user and users with an S. That way here we can go users as user. Okay, so this is going to go hit the user table, find all the users, report them back to this for each, and we can just say, you know what, for each of those users, output them, and we're just going to output their first and last name. We can also call our update and our delete. Okay, and here we're going to say we want to update the user ID, because this is where we've changed them to be user ID instead of just ID. And it's the same here also, user ID and user ID. And this will be username, which is great, and password. And one more small change. And there. Okay, so that should not throw any errors. Let's just double check that it looks good. It's going to say, go in, create this table. This is the table header. Go find our user class. Go to our database object, use the find all query, put it into this array called users. In the array called users, take out each user row and output the user row username, starting with the row and in each column, and then close the row and do it again. So let's run that and see. So when we go back to our project, we can now just go to the user folder, and it's saying we are having a issue on the required ones, failed opening the required private initialize. So since it's required, it threw that error. So what we need to do is at the very top, remember we now added a new folder. Okay, so at the very top, we just need to add a // Okay, that's our new folder. So if we go, so it says go out of this folder, go out of this folder, and go into this folder, private. So you have to go out of two folders now, and that's what the // that's what that means. So now if I refresh that page, it's working. I don't actually have a username and password yet, but it's working. So if I go into my user and I go into insert, this auto incremented, so I'm just going to say test and test and click go. And I can come over here and refresh this, and you can see it says test and test, so it works. Small issue, I need to say, I'm missing my column headers for update and delete. So that's a very easy fix. I can just come over here to the table header and fix both of those for update and delete. Okay, so I can, at this point, I can say I can work on these four, and I can make sure that they go through and can create, delete, view, and update all of my users. When I'm finished with that, I could then right click on this user and duplicate the folder and call it blog, and do the same thing with these four to create, delete, view, and update all my blogs. And then I would be able to do the same thing again for any of my contracts that are related to the blogs. So at that point, that's the easiest way to get your project set up and really get a good working start on this whole project using the object-oriented programming approach.